So, hi everyone. Yeah, excellent. So today, my name is Martynas Marozas, and I have a small urban design company in Vilnius, and we do urbanism there. Last year, this was not last year. This was last year we did this major research for Kaunas. And then one thing that we realized is actually that, my childhood is very comparable to the childhood of like 60% of Lithuanians, just because somewhere around 50 to 60% of people actually were born and raised in apartments like this. And currently this is somewhere in Vilnius, close to Justiniškės, as someone knows, and currently here is a highway, or maybe some kind of shopping center. But at that time, it was a time when there was a lot of positivity, you know? So, like, parents got an apartment, the apartment was new, some kind of new possibilities, then the independence came, and then somehow things started deteriorating a little bit. And last year, we were asked to do this research in Kaunas, and actually we just first thing what we did this drone footage, and then we immediately see that, yeah, Jesus Christ, look at the amount of cars, and then there's a space here that is like used to be maybe a basketball court. There's like electrical transformer station which is like 10 times too big, and then cars double parked. But I mean the nature is nice, and then there's some kind of Schumachers parking there. Let's say almost in front of a house or on the house in front of the entrance, while kindergarten or social infrastructure is more or less well maintained. However, double parking everywhere, and then again, like Mindaugas and everyone else says that it's actually very difficult to identify which neighborhood it is, you know? Just because these modernist ideals in modernist housing are applied very uniformly from Vladivostok to Madrid, you know? And then once we're talking about how can we solve this problem, let's say, of almost like biblical proportions, and then it's actually a major task. I mean, how do we transform 50% of our Lithuanian housing stock? I think the same is for Latvia, same is for Poland and so on. It's just this task is very difficult. And then we started talking with people who actually do the renovation. And then we see that, well, this biblical thing is kind of very comparable also to the tasks that are happening. So there's also always a renovation agency who have to suffer through everything. Then we have the architect, obviously, the planner on the other side. They will all go to heaven, but currently everyone hates them. Then there's residents, contractors, bank, bleeding, everybody, you know? And then there's municipality and of course the government, which is sainter than the Holy Mary, usually. And then we thought, well, since we have this kind of a very almost like biblical or almost a religious problem, then maybe one way of dealing with it is actually kind of trying to create some kind of values or rules that would outlast the political cycle or the government. And then we kind of think, okay, so why don't we create some kind of a guidelines as commandments that actually represent a certain value system of new urbanism rather than a strict rule that is in law and so on. So we have this kind of 10 rules, 10 commandments for a Mikroraryon that I want to share. A little bit to make it a little bit more interactive, yeah? If you like a commandment, yeah, shout, just clap your hands or something like that, or just say hallelujah, whatever, you know? So, one thing that we noticed is that social infrastructure is usually very inaccessible. It's kind of located in the courtyard, and then we say that the first commandment, thou shalt make social infrastructure clearly visible and easily accessible for all. Right. Yeah. We also see that public spaces, if they're designed just for one building, they're not really public. Therefore, thou shalt always design public spaces for a larger group of houses rather than one building. The problem, usual problem, is that it's very difficult to think about land ownership in a modernist build housing, just because, not technically, but de facto it was kind of abolished, you know. So all the public land is publicly owned. Yeah. Therefore, we think that maybe it's good to reestablish some kind of or maybe use some recipes from the old city. Therefore, we say that the front facade shall be public and the rear facade shall be private. Maybe people will privatize the gardens and maybe they will maintain of the space that is behind the house. And then we also see that currently some people already do it. Then, once we see these cul-de-sacs or these dead ends, horrible. I mean, everything that is wrong is this kind of non-continuous street network. And then if there's a way where people put trash, where people park on the grass, it's usually at the very end of the street because they feel that they're not going to be punished. Because once you kind of follow this cul-de-sac through the Mikroraryon, then you realize that, yeah, nobody is going to, let's say, walk that far. And then we say that thou shalt design a seamless street network between the group of houses. Then we also see that if Mikroraryons tend to privatize the plots, they kind of cut off the daily pedestrian routes to the supermarket, to the kindergarten, to the bus stop, and they actually kind of fragment neighborhood to a point where it's not possible to use it anymore. And then what we say is that, well, modernist ideals, you know, all this kind of open space that doesn't belong to anyone, but maybe if you design efficient pedestrian network, this will solve the problem. Therefore, 5, thou shalt ensure the most efficient pedestrian network. Then we also see that, okay, parking. Yeah, parking is the devil, you know? But we also see that it's not really possible for some cities to get rid of this, let's say, sin. And then we see that from the analysis that we did, from this drone footage, we actually managed to calculate that it's only 70% of apartments that need parking. Therefore, we say that if you want to design it, you can also design parking and public space at the same time. It is not necessary to occupy all the space. You just make sure that there's not too much parking and make sure that it's paid. Yeah? So, they shall solve parking on a larger scale and then on a larger group of houses rather than one apartment. Then, we also see that people usually think that, oh yeah, this is open space, it's not used by anybody, and then, yeah, what do you do there? Well, I think we should prioritize, and then maybe, because there's already quite a lot of nature in these microraryons, maybe we have to make it stronger, you know? Maybe some kind of abandoned little forest, we can fence it off, and then maybe have like tigers and then wild wolves there, so that we have real nature in the Mikroraryon. So therefore, we shall use open spaces for recreation and strengthen the natural framework. Hallelujah. Then, we also see that there's a lot of things about climate resilience, the energy, then where do we get the runoff water. Then we also say, okay, yeah, so like buildings overheating or like they're too cool. So we think that it's not only the buildings that have to be insulated, but we also have to apply nature-based solutions to a new construction and reconstructing of infrastructure. Then, once we see that, okay, so what cities prioritize or what residents prioritize? I understand that that's kind of a, let's say, almost ideal situation where you just you have a place to park a car, yeah. But then there's no place to walk. And then the major problem here, we see that it's not maybe the residents that are to blame, but maybe a public space design, yeah, or maybe even private space design that actually prioritizes this type of behavior. Therefore, we say that they shall give priority for pedestrians and green space, and cars should be only a guest. Somehow I expected this to be a bit louder. Louder! And last but not least, it's a bit controversial. Not all commandments people like, yeah, but we believe that the Mikroraryon are the densest neighborhoods in the country, usually. If you would have the demographics map, you would see that, like, all the Mikroraryon in all cities are the densest neighborhoods in the country. And then the problem is that it only has one typology, apartments. That's it. We think that it's enough apartments. Yeah? We think that maybe we need new typologies in a Mikroraryon, and we shall prioritize new typologies over more apartments. And try to create something that makes it a bit more exciting and actually meets the needs of a future. Hallelujah.